Behold, 10th anniversary wishes from all the many great content creators of Skylands! Whoa! Hold on there, Sizzle Chest! Anniversaries aren't just for YouTubers, developers love them too! Hit it, Portalcasters!
Hey, yeah, we should come together. Let's be heroes in the night. We're like spotlights beaming in the black sky. We can lift the darkness with our light. 'Cause everybody's in harmony.
Together
in harmony. Oh, harmony.
Together
In harmony.
This is Chill Bill coming at you live from Cathedral to be a special guest host for this 10th anniversary celebratory episode of Skylanders Portalcasters, the podcast discussing anything and everything Skylanders. Over to you, Inklander.
Thanks, Chill Bill. I'm joined today by my co-host GFDitto for this special 10th anniversary celebration of the Skylanders franchise. So Ditto, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's the 10th anniversary. I am all about this.
Yes, absolutely. This is going to be so much fun. And Chill Bill, thanks for being a co-host. How are you?
I am doing well. Cool as a very cool cucumber. We had a break-in at Cathedral a few days ago, but everything is fine now.
Well, we're glad to hear that everything has been worked out at the Cathedral radio station. So today, the North American release of Skylanders Spyro's Adventure happened. The game that really shook up the video game industry for such a long time. It brought about the whole concept of toys to life. It eventually caused other games to kind of try to mimic what Skylanders was able to do, like Disney Infinity, Lego Dimensions, all these other franchises, but, none of them to me really are able to hold a candle to what Skylanders was trying to do.
Indeed. And it's been a wonderful 10 years. This franchise has not only allowed us to have unique experiences, but also to form new friendships, strengthen bonds, and to make new memories that are special to each of us. As we've discussed throughout the podcast thus far, this franchise has grown near and dear to our hearts, and our time with Skylanders is something we treasure.
But of course, we're not just celebrating on our own. We have a variety of guest stars in this episode. Usually we have on just one, but because this is such a big, important moment, we wanted to make sure that we were able to get as many creators on as we possibly could. And so let's go ahead and have everyone go around and introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what kind of content you make that's related to Skylanders.
My name is Alpha Ambush, and I used to just make Skylander videos, just anything Skylanders, sometimes some stop motions, just whatever came to mind.
Hey, this is Robert Welkner from CoinOp TV, and I used to make videos about Skylanders, and I still think Skylanders is a cool thing.
Greetings, fellow Portalmasters. I am Crash Razzle, and it's once again time to crash the Skylands with this podcast with Inklander and GFDitto. Oh my gosh, I'm in a podcast.
Hey guys, my name is Crystal Blazier, and I mostly cover fantasy games like Skylanders, Spyro, and other games.
So I'm Andy Robertson. I'm a journalist. I've been writing about sort of families and video games since kind of the Wii came out, and I kind of moved into journalism. And so that's kind of the area I sit in. And then with Skylanders, it was kind of hands-on family fun, which took it in a more kind of fun direction. But by often I'm doing sort of advice on how to keep games healthy for parents, but Skylanders was a nice kind of diversion from that in just having fun with the kids on camera. I should also say, I have a YouTube channel, Family Gamer TV, that I started in 2012, and it's been enjoyable. It's been up and down again. So YouTube's a funny kind of beast, but I kind of feel really privileged to have had the channel, and for quite a few years it was my main income. So I appreciated being able to sort of do what I love and to make a bit of money from it at the same time.
Yo guys, I've got Spark, which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a podcast today of all things. How glorious. But yes, for those of you who don't know me, my content is right along the lines with my tone of voice right now. Charismatic, to say the least. So I've been creating Skylanders content for just over 4 years now, and I've had a blast every step of the way, and so my content has really grown with its audience, and over time I've gone from just really making more basic videos to very advanced editorials and more mature based live streams. So I am very glad to be on this podcast today to celebrate the 10 years of Skylanders and how, everything has came towards me creating content to this very day, mind you. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Hey there everyone, Chap28 here, and I used to do a ton of Skylander content, kind of more involved into some Pokemon content now, but I still really do love Skylanders.
So my name's Mr. Agent Perry, or just Perry. I have kind of been out of the game a little bit, I guess, for a little bit now, but whenever I am actually doing stuff, I usually stream. I stream a lot of Skylanders, but I like to stream anything that I like to play. And then I've also helped Ditto and Inklander in helping put together some musical arrangements that they've used for their podcast. So that's been really fun. I'm a huge music fan and a huge Skylanders fan, so it's really easy and nice to just kind of be able to fall right into that, get to play some music and of a game series that I really love.
I'm Pirate Dad. My real name's Ryan, but I go by Pirate Dad online. And as far as content creation goes, I'm pretty active in the Skylanders community Discord servers. I create tools for collectors like myself. I just sort of see, what would I use? And I sort of just create that for the community to use. So that is what I do.
Hey there guys, Portal Master here, and I have been a Skylanders YouTuber off and on since about 2013. I like to make all kinds of Skylanders content, ranging from gameplay to discussion to theories, to ranking Skylanders. I just like all kinds of Skylanders content.
My name is Serena, and mostly what I do is Skylanders related. Just sometimes I do some arts related to it, some drawings, or sometimes, as I used to do a while ago, I just do some custom movesets and stuff, ideas of certain game characters with Skylanders.
Hi, I'm Saint Lesbian, or Penta as my friends might know me. I mostly make fan art for Skylanders. I've just generally been consuming it on the side, but slowly getting back into the series, and hopefully I'll be able to stream some of the games sometime soon.
My name is Matt Sonnenberg, better known as SCL Matt. I run the website called SkylandersCharacterlist.com. That is, of course, where the SCL Matt name comes from. I ran that back in the day, and now it also includes aspects such as a YouTube channel, all the social media channels, and now even the SCL shop where I sell Skylanders.
I am Skylander Xeon, and I've been in the community for so long, except recently I've just wanted to re-explore everything that the franchise means to me. So I've been going back to my roots of collecting, playing through the games, and just seeing what new discoveries I can find, even in the current year.
Hello, my name is Skylands70, and I'm fairly new to the YouTube scene, but I figured it was about time. Been a Skylanders fan since around 2011, and I just really want to give back to the community that means so much to me in my life. I make content relating to, at the moment, just mostly memes, Skylanders, tier lists at the moment, basically, hoping to get into some video game playthroughs.
What's up guys, it's Ricky Kimo. I am a Skylander YouTuber. I've been doing Skylander videos since 2011, since Spyro's Adventure, and it's really fun. I have always trying to kind of think outside of the box with my videos, just kind of create stuff that I feel would definitely be fun with me. I always did unboxing and news videos back in the day with Skylanders and for every single game, and I've always wanted to share my love for Skylanders. I think the rest of the communities. I still love Skylanders to this day, and I think there's still a chance, there's still a possibility of a, new game possibly in the future. So I definitely want to keep going with content, it's content that I love, content that is different and innovative.
I am Teal Bald, also known as Teal Game Master on YouTube, and I just like making gaming content of any kind, playthrough, walkthrough guides, reviews, top 10s, etc., whatever it may be. I love entertaining people and trying to create unique videos, if possible, here and there.
I'm Samuel, aka Terrapog, and I do meme videos and music
videos for Skylanders.
Hello, I am Tui Me. I am a YouTuber. I have been doing YouTube for 11 years now. I mainly do Skylanders content. I've done some Skylanders backstory videos. I am most well known for my Skylanders live stream videos. I've done all sorts of them. I did letting the audience pick Skylanders. I've done Skylanders Locks, which means if the Skylander dies, then they're dead forever. I also do lots of Power Rangers videos and visual effects videos because I enjoy doing that. So yeah, that's me.
I am Ultrastar, and I am a Skylanders speedrunner, and that is where I do my Skylander related content.
My name is Keenan. I have gone through several different handles online, but WK Oatway is pretty much my mainstay. And as far as what I bring to the Skylanders community, I do some art, some drawings, and some concepts for OC Skylanders. And I've dabbled in fan fiction.
So instead of the typical discussion style podcast episode we normally bring to you, especially with guests, we figured that this time, because there are so many guest stars here, so many people to give their shared experiences, we decided that today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to shake it up a little bit, and we have come up with a series of 10 questions, one for every year the Skylanders franchise has been out, that we're going to ask each of the creators here.
Absolutely. And the first question that we have for everyone is, what does the series mean to you, and why are you still here?
Well, I started off with the original Spyro. A lot of people know that I grew up with the first 3 games. So generally, when I first saw Skylanders, of course, I was just like, oh god, they ruined Spyro. But once I actually played it, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. And when I did, I realized they continued my childhood. And I mean, I get to play Spyro now, old and new, and, reignite trilogy and all that. But it's still something I enjoy, and I feel like I know enough for the content to be able to make it fun and people want to come and watch and enjoy and all that. But it's literally continued my childhood, which was great, which was, like 20 something years ago now. But it did continue, which is awesome.
Well, I've been watching Skylanders since it was first announced, like back in 2011. Mainly the Spyro was in there. I was like wondering, ooh, if Spyro's in there, and who are all these characters? And it's like, ooh, all the toys to life, the possibilities. Instead of just playing a dragon, you can just play as a griffin or a Gilman or an elf. It was like, ooh, this series is going to be fun. So I guess I tried it out, and it just went off from there. And Skylanders is just one of the nostalgic games I've been playing since I was little, and I'm still a fan today, and just not as much since the series is on hiatus and all.
Honestly, it's mostly because of the fact that it was a Spyro thing at first, since I was like obsessed with Spyro as a child. And as I got into this series and started branching out into it, I realized, oh wow, this is like an autistic kid's collection fever dream, because like I'm autistic and everything, and so this started becoming like a special interest of mine, I could say, or hyperfixation, I'm not sure. Either way, yeah, generally I got pretty attached to just how vast this series is, and also how it managed to keep the Spyro name alive over the past few years.
Honestly, Skylanders means a lot of things for me. I first got into it when it first launched. Like, I had first heard about it from an IGN article where they're talking about the return of Spyro in this Toys to Life format. And I was immediately entranced with that. And so by the time it came out, I was in my first year of university. I was kind of on my own and still having difficulty making friends. And I don't know, it was something that was really easy to sink myself into and meet a lot of cool people online and really see that it was really a big introduction for like the online community and how people can rally around something and like share their interests and go out hunting for these little figures and like, oh, I found Pirate Seas, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that was out yet, kind of thing. It was like a big social thing for me and finding a community of like-minded individuals. And I'm still here because, so I was just out of the community for a while. Just, life moves on after something ends sometimes, and finding it again and really finding that there was a lot of nostalgia and a lot of good memories that I had with it. And even today, the games are amazingly fun. and just everything about Skylanders brings an immense sense of joy to me.
Well, it's kind of just one of the first game series I really got into. I've never managed to get many of the Skylanders beyond the first artifact where Spyro's Adventure, but I really like the games. So it was really one of the big parts of my childhood, and that's kind of why I'm still here. I still enjoy it. I still find it really fun, so I still check it out from time to time. And yeah, still interact with the people. I like it. That's why.
So the series to me really represents such a huge part of my childhood. I got into it a little later, age-wise, I guess, than a lot of other kids, I guess, because I was 11 when the first Skylanders game came out. But ultimately, throughout my, I guess, teenage years, really, I was such a huge fan of Skylanders. And if anyone takes a look at my room, you can see the whole thing is decked out with Skylanders. And it's just a constant reminder of that part of my childhood. And one of the big reasons that I think I stayed as such a fan of Skylanders is because of the content creation side of things. But really and truly, it's just such a huge part, and it feels wrong to leave it behind at this point.
To answer the question as to why this series means so much to me, I first need to go back to when I first got the Skylanders Spyro's Adventure starter pack from the 4 for Nintendo Wii, and that story takes us back to Christmas of 2011, where I wound up getting everything but the starter pack from my parents, and naturally, of course, I was grateful of the several presents that I got, but I was really disappointed at the very fact that I didn't get the thing that I wanted most. I was so desperate for that Spyro's Adventure starter pack that on my Christmas list I put circles and arrows explaining quite explicitly that it was the Spyro's Adventure starter pack that I wanted more than anything else for that Christmas. But naturally, my parents didn't get it for me because instead my grandparents showed up a few hours later and they gave me a very specific shaped present, and that was, of course, the Skylanders Spyro's Adventure starter pack for Nintendo Wii. So I, unraveled that present with such excitement, and seeing those 3 Skylanders, Spyro, Gilgo, and Trigger Happy, it just filled me with such sheer joy. And then, of course, I booted up the game for the first time on the Nintendo Wii later that Christmas evening, and I've never felt such a strong connection with a game before. And going into Spyro's Adventure, I'd played a few games, Mario Kart, Mario Brothers, Naturally, though, I was never really all that heavily into video games. It wasn't until Skylanders that I learned what video games could do. It was truly with Skylanders that games impacted me for the first time. I always enjoyed them, but never to this caliber. And that's ultimately what this series means to me. It means the very fact that I love video games to the caliber that I do today because of my involvement with Skylanders. And I am still here because these games still hold up. They have that really special, sweet spot within my heart that puts a smile on my face every single time I revisit them. These games were just truly what plotted the course for my passion for video games moving forward. And it just means so much to me that I am the person I am today, and I have my passion I have today for video games because of Skylanders.
So it was just timely because my kids were of a good age to enjoy it when the first one came out. I could remember Spyro, and I remember having a conversation with the PR person, them saying, we want to basically, we want to take you to go and see Toys for Bob because there's this new game, and if you see the studio and talk to them, you'll see it's really special. And my response was, but Spyro, it's a character that's kind of been and gone. This is just a lot of heavy lifting from a big company to try and reinvigorate an old character because they need something in the toy space. So I was pretty cynical about it and was really reluctant to go. A busy family life and stuff, those sort of trips are really nice, but there's a cost to them as well. But then I give the PR person their due. They kept going, and I went out in one of those first trips over to see the studio, I guess just before the game had launched, and something just clicked really. I really was bought I really bought into the kind of the toys remembering the fun you've had and the sort of saving your progress on the toy. And so I think from there, I've kind of thought, oh, this is great. What else is there going to be? And although obviously there have been other sort of Toys to Life stuff, nothing seems to quite match that Skylanders kind of spark, and not in as pure a way, both from a technological perspective, but also from like an original IP, original characters perspective. So I just sort of kept going with it, and if and when there's another Skylanders game, I'm looking forward to playing it. So it's basically, there's a strong sentimental connection, but I think technologically and what the game actually does, there still hasn't been anything that's quite hit that combination as powerfully.
I think when I first saw Skylanders, I don't know, I like all those weird peripheral stuff, like any games that have weird gimmicks, I'm all for that. I know some people hate that, like one of my favorite gimmicky games is Rock Band. I just love the concept of having your own like guitar or drum set and like kind of playing it and learning to play it. And Skylanders is along the same line. I saw it, I was like, whoa, you put the character on and it changes. That's like the coolest thing ever. And my dad bought it for me, and it was like the thing we played together all the time. I always played as Drobot and my dad always played as Chop Chop. So it's just a lot of nostalgia. I think the reason I'm still here is just because I'm persistent. Like, I don't know. I haven't found anything I enjoy as much as Skylanders playing. I just think there's so much variety in it. Like, if I want to play the game with only Drobot, I can do that. If I want to play the game with every single character for every single level, I can do that. Like, I like variety in my games. There's this board game I like to play called Villainous, and one of the reasons I love that board game is because it's different every time you play it. You can choose a different villain and play as a different villain. They have a complete different strategy and all that. And Skylanders just really reminds me of that. There's always a different thing you could be doing in the game, so lots of content to be made with that.
Skylanders is quite a special series to me because it was the first game of its kind, really, to introduce the whole Toys to Life gameplay, and it was a game that I didn't really know about prior to buying it. Like, I'd heard about it, I think, like 3 days before it came out, what it was. I was like, okay, well, it's got Spyro in the name. I wanna pick it up, and I just had such a journey of being on the fence of we'll see how this goes, to this is awesome, I love it, and just picking up every game after that. And I was one of the first people to cover the first game, and those videos blew up in a way that I was not expecting. It sort of really helped boost my channel, and it's been such a pleasure and an honor to have so many people discover me through such an amazing series. But I've got so much more of an affiliation for the series because of the wonderful people who made it, and I've had the honor of talking to a lot of them in depth about their experiences with developing the game, as well as before and after. It's a real honor to be able to talk to such incredible people, but also it's an honor to just get to play the game. Like, it's so easy to take for granted in any game, any franchise, any movie, whatever it may be. So many people put so much work and time and love into making it what it is, and we get to play that or watch it, and that's quite a gift when you really think about it. Like the fact that it's here and we get to enjoy that is amazing.
Awesome. Now, for our second question to you, what is your favorite memory in Skylands?
Well, I would say for me personally, that would be the Skylanders Trap Team release day. I remember the night before, I was like up all night, super excited. I was planning everything out because, of course, as a collector, I'm going to try and get whatever I can. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Toys R Us first, and then I'm going to go to Walmart and then Target. I'm going to have to get all these, and this is how I can do it in the most cost-effective way. And it was just all this planning for the release day, and then the morning of, when I got to go around to different stores and pick up all the new Skylanders, it was really, really fun. I did all of that with my grandma, and she's always been very supportive of me and my collecting, but that I would say was my favorite memory. It was a very good memory.
Back in the day, when the game was still coming out, Spyro's Adventure, I had two best friends named Sophia and James. They were twins, and we used to be into the hoops a lot, three of us and our dads, because all of us were into Skylanders. So we would go back and forth if some stores had some characters that we didn't have. I remember we did a trade one time. I gave them a new 3DS starter pack. They gave me the Empire of Ice, and I want to say it was a 3-pack with like Zook, Cinder, and Lightning Rod. And so it was just fun to do stuff like that. They actually called us one time around, it was a school night, 1 a.m. I was about to go to bed and got a phone call because he was a police officer, their dad. And he's at the mall, and there's this Toys R Us in the mall. And he says, "Get down here, they've got Whamshell and Sunbird, the last characters that we still needed." So drove down there at 1:30 a.m., school work night, to pick up Skylanders.
So mine's actually a figure hunt. I was trying to think of the best one, but it was my 2-year hunt for trying to find Dark Wildfire. Because it took 2 years for me to find one Skylander. And then when I did, it made my life complete. When I first saw him, he was at a local EB Games, like a used game store, like GameStop in America and all that. And he was there. And that day I was just like, nah, I won't get him. I'll just get him some other time. And I went to work and I was like, man, I should have got him. And then the next day I go back and he wasn't there. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I should have bought that. And then for 2 years, I was just keeping my eyes open, seeing if he was around. And I saw someone on a Facebook ad selling a bunch of Skylanders, and Dark Wildfire was there. And I'm just like, am I allowed to buy like one Skylander? And she was like, sure. And there we go. 2 years later, I finally got him. And he was worth every penny.
Well, it'd have to be meeting so many cool people, not in person, but I became friends with Crash the Skylands, of course, Brylander from Portal Power TV, Paul, PDDT-Tube, he's one of my best friends now, Steve Smith, like, you just meet a whole bunch of great people along the way, and as far as, like, the collecting aspect, if I had to pick my favorite memory, it would be the time I ordered 10 Chain Reactions from Walmart, and when they came in, 8 of them were the rare orange ones, so that was pretty cool.
My favorite memory would be that back in 2016, it was mid to late May of 2016, we were just getting out of the Superchargers release cycle, and I was just on Google, randomly searching Skylanders, seeing if there was anything, and I was the person to find the first Imaginators leak. It was a calendar for 2017 that had Kingpin and Golden Queen on it. Even if you go back to that SCL article, you can see that he credits Skylanders Master Eon, and there you go.
Probably the memory that stands out to me the most is one of my major world records that got the most views on YouTube. It was my 127 run that was done about a year ago, and since that was at a time when we were working towards going past the 10-minute barrier, which was the 130 mark, I had a solid run with that with these older strats, and that's when I also had a competition with this other speedrunner named Rever25, and since it blew up on YouTube, and it was a really good run for its time, I found it as my unique memory because it was so successful.
There's something quite impactful about both the Traptanium crystals getting to utilize that for the first time or against such a powerful foe. Partly that, but also creating your own Skylander in Imaginators. That was something really quite spectacular. Like, just, I mean, like, that was the dream, right? Like, being able to make what you wanted and actually getting that opportunity. That's probably it for me. I love that. Like, when you, as a player, you obviously impact the game because you are playing it. But with something like a Traptanium Crystal or an Imaginators, it really feels like it's you in a way that just placing a Skylander on the portal doesn't. It's quite special.
Probably one of my favorite memories of Skylanders is being able to play as Chaos. He was kind of the villain of the game for so many years, and then getting able to turn around and play as him and have some of his powers at your fingertips. That was kind of a big, huge moment. One of my favorite moments.
I don't know, I have a lot of really good memories from the game, but I'd say probably my favorite memories came around like right at the start of the franchise when I first started. Because I just remember like when I first got the game back in 2012, I think it was January 2012. I mean, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen, because before that point, the only games I'd really played were like, like Super Smash Bros. Melee, SSX Tricky, some Wii games, it's just like basic Nintendo stuff. But when I saw like this franchise where you could take these figures and then put them on this little like USB portal device, and then all of a sudden they show up in the game with all these stats, these unique characteristics and all that. I mean, it was just like, it was mind blowing to me back then. And I mean, I just became obsessed with getting all the figures and just like, playing through all the games. And I mean, the battle mode, that really, like, that was the best part of the game, in my opinion. It was very unfortunate that they took it out with like Track Team, I think it was. But yeah, I would say like my favorite memories of Skylanders would probably be like in 2012 or 2013, when I used to just like go hunting around for like all the Skylanders, waiting to see when they would be released. And then just like whenever I'd find one, I'd like tell all my friends, and then we'd meet together and do like a battle mode, like tournament. I mean, it was just like so much fun.
I especially managed to get into Skylanders through a friend of mine because we'd play the 3DS version of it on the bus together. Like, he'd have a couple of Skylanders already loaded up, and we'd take turns playing through levels as we waited to get home. That was what really got me, like, my first interest into it. And being able to bond with that friend of mine over this shared interest in the game, it just means a lot to me from that. Gave me the Whirlwind figure and gave me his whole collection once he was done with the series. I still have such a distinct memory of it. It was 7th grade, and we had just gotten finished with like Hurricane Sandy over here. Power was out. I went down the street to go visit him to make sure he was all right. And we talked for a little bit, and he gave me his Whirlwind figure as a gift. And I think it was because he was a little bit in love with me or something. But it was one of the nicest things that anybody had done for me at the time.
I don't know. I think my favorite memory is just all the people I converted into liking Skylanders. I had many friends come over. I would just have all these figures on my coffee table, and people would be like, "What is that thing?" And I'd be like, "Let me show you." And then we would just play Skylanders, and within a week or so, they would have their own and play it. I think I converted like 6 or 7 people, which is like pretty good because it's quite an expensive hobby, if you want to call it that. But yeah, some of my friends still have all their Skylanders, even if they don't play it as much anymore. But I'm just proud. They should hire me at Activision for the sales department. That's all I'm saying.
Gotta love some of these memories. They are just really cool, and some of these are just so unique, and it just reminds me of like all my time with the franchise. So it's been great hearing everyone's responses. So for the third question, how has being a part of the Skylanders community affected you as a creator?
The joke answer would be it incentivized me to upgrade my recording equipment because my first playthrough looked really bad. But the real answer would be that I've met a lot of really amazing people through playing Skylanders. My good friend Mike Stout worked on Skylanders, and he's also worked on other games like the Ratchet & Clank series on PS2. And because he had seen the videos, and he also checked out to see if I'd done other stuff, and he saw that I did Ratchet, we started talking, and we've actually met up a couple of times when I've been in LA. It's such a wonderful thing when you get to meet a really great friend, and it's we're still great friends. We still talk, and it's absolute honor to be friends with him.
This might be a little sappy. When I first started streaming Skylanders, I didn't think anybody would watch it because I'm like, it's this kid's game that's like, almost 10 years old at this point. But like, it definitely wasn't like the first night that I streamed or whatever. But within the first few weeks of me streaming, and I was just, just doing it because I was like, I just want to play this game and have fun with it. Ditto, I think it was you that rated me first. If not, it was Inklander. It was one of the two of you rated me first, I know. And just immediately, hopped in the chat, and we were just talking about Skylanders afterwards. And I'm kind of feeling like, Ditto, maybe it was you now. But I just remember just being like blown away within the first, few minutes of both of you being in chat and just talking and everything. Like that I had found, somehow I guess you had found me actually, that I had found other people that were just as passionate and loved the series just as much as I did, even as long after, as it's been. And that just like blew me away. And then I started to realize, like, the more that I was interacting with people that were coming in to watch Skylanders, that like everybody who loves these games, like, really, really loves these games. And I think it's such a small, like, it's not really that small, but it is kind of a niche community. So I think anybody who finds anybody else who's into Skylanders, they're just super drawn to each other. And I love how much of an instant connection it feels like there is with everybody in this community. I'm realizing that something as simple as a kid's game can help make a really, really deep connection with somebody. So now it's easier for me to realize, just as far as like how I connect with people, to how like just talking to them in the stream and in chat and everything, is that it's like I realize that most people are just happy to talk. Obviously it's easier if you're, talking about something that everybody's interested in, but I think it's just made me realize that people are much more passionate about things than I thought they were, and that's really exciting to me.
Well, being part of the community and being a content creator, you get to show all these new players and existing Portal Masters what Skylanders you have and what they can do. It also builds up more hype for them because they can check it out for themselves or just go and buy their own copies. It just helps them out. And communicating with the community too. It's also fun, like talking with other players who enjoy playing Skylanders as much as I do.
I think more recently, a big thing that it has helped with was that it got me out of a creative slump. Because prior to getting back into the community, I didn't really have a focus of where my creative energy was going to outside of work. And then just kind of rediscovering it again, remembering what I really loved about the franchise was all these different characters and all these different backstories and just the aesthetic of it and how basically anything can go in a Skylanders world. And just, starting to think like, what if I want to do a character that was like a Spiders man, where, he's just a horde of spiders kind of thing. And how would he make sense in the Skylanders world? What would his attacks be? How would he move? And like if you were to carry him from each game, like what would his supercharger form look like and how that play out? And just, Skylanders really activates the creative energy in me, which as a creator, creative energy is what you need. So
it kind of just helps me come up with good ideas. I hear the stuff people say and it's nice. It lets me be more creative, get more ideas, stuff like that. Just inspiration mostly.
Well, being a part of the community mostly kind of made people take interest into what speedrunning is like and how Skylanders is speedrun, not just necessarily for me, but the other speedrunners. It's that speedrun the other games. It's taken a good path and it's started to rise popularity a bit. And even though it may not be very mainstream, it still is a really good speed game to play and watch.
I wouldn't have had a YouTube channel really. I think I would have stopped if I hadn't sort of struck it lucky with Skylanders Giants. So I was in New York at the Toy Fair for the launch of the second game, and we'd seen, we'd had a presentation with Paul Ritchie, probably Eric Hirschberg I think was there, and I'd done some interviews for newspapers and stuff, and we clearly had probably about an hour before we had to go, and I'd been tinkering with YouTube, and so I'd kind of created like a for parents show, which was ridiculous because what I had done is just taken a TV format and thought, okay, this is what I'll do. So like the opening credits were literally maybe 40 seconds long with just the same little thing every episode. And any video I do now, I'd be lucky to have 1 second as like an ident, and I had like 40 seconds you had to watch through before getting to any actual content. So it's a miracle anyone watched them. But because I had some time, I thought, well, I might as well film a bit because I'm here, and I had a tripod. I could put my phone on it and plug a microphone in. I did a funny little bit to camera of like, oh, we've just seen this Skylanders game. It's the first kind of outside sort of filming I've ever done, so I felt like a bit of a Burke. And then I'd filmed some footage of the game and the toys, and was back at the hotel thinking, oh, we need to, I'll probably go out for some food, so why don't I get the video edited? So I did that, so I didn't have to do it when I get home, because when I was getting back, I knew I'd have quite a lot of writing to do for newspapers and stuff. Went out for some food, checked my phone to see if it uploaded, and was like, oh, YouTube's broken again, because then this was 2012, and the reporting on YouTube was really haphazard. Quite often it would tell you numbers that weren't correct, but it said something like, I don't know, 10,000 views. So went back to the hotel to double check on the computer. expecting it to be sort of like 10 or 12, 10, 20, 30, so the sort of numbers I was getting, and it was 20,000. And so I was like, what's happening here? And the video was probably it must have been the first video really of Skylanders Giants. It had been like linked to in some various places, and the community had kind of found it and was sharing it. And so, suddenly being kind of jumped upon by that kind of crowd, I was like, oh, this is great. How can I do this? Because that was going to be many more people engaging with the content than, say, writing for a national newspaper. And so that kind of set me on a path of, okay, well, I really like this. I like the game. I enjoy creating the videos. How can I make this happen again? Also, I hadn't monetized anything. I was like, oh, can I make some money from this? Could this actually be something that I could spend a lot of time on? And then for the next couple of years, kind of just slowly headed into kind of a video a day territory, which is obviously kind of pretty heavy lifting. But I was in a position to be able to do that. And the more I did it, the more I understood about YouTube. And also the more I understood about that sort of Skylanders community that was just getting started. And the better access I got to Skylanders. So really, I wouldn't have had this, what's become kind of 500,000 subscribers YouTube channel that probably for 6 or 7 years was the main thing. Is down to the sort of the warmth and connection that came from that Skylanders community. So it's pretty powerful in my life, really.
Making Skylanders content was great, and being part of the community, because I got to do some collaborations with a lot of other Portal Masters and read comments and respond to people, and help my channel sort of really grow and blow up. And it was just kind of cool going to E3 and meeting other Portal Masters that flew in and that I would never sort of interact with. That was very cool.
The Skylanders community has affected me as a creator by ultimately making me feel more humbled and more appreciated. I get viewers that are constantly praising my content, which blows my mind for the very fact that hundreds of people will show up to my content day in, day out for time to be as valuable a resource as it is, and people to choose to spend it with me, with my content, is beyond humbling. And so that's where my content comes from. It comes from a place of inspiration and passion, because there's a cycle here. There's a cycle of me producing the content, and then people enjoying the content and making me feel motivated to make more content for them, because I understand that they're enjoying it. I understand why they enjoy it and why I should continue to keep creating it. And above all, I'm not only humbled by the people who watch my content, but people who create content of their own. There are dozens upon dozens of smaller content creators that, despite not getting nearly the recognition they deserve, they still pump out passionate, heartfelt videos day in, day out. They truly care for this franchise, and I can see through them that it doesn't matter the popularity here. What matters most is that these content creators all share a joy and passion and dedication to this franchise. There is just such a warm, heartfelt feeling within this community. You can start creating videos right out for blue, and you will find yourself a wave of support, and overall, it makes the community as welcoming as it is. There are fewer video game communities that will give you this heartwarming feeling where you truly feel included and welcomed. There are few creators out there who will dismiss your content, that will allow you to go without the support you deserve. And so the community is great because everything goes full circle. We all watch each other's content. We all just have a way of making each other feel special within our own content that we make, because we all have our own unique spins on everything. And so knowing that there's a community out there that's there to support me no matter what, and that I can in turn support them, is just something that creates a wave of inspiration that keeps me going. I wouldn't keep going if not for the constant commentators reminding me on why it is that I create this content in the first place. I love this community. I love creating content for this community, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
Some really great answers here that just go to show that we're kind of nothing without the community behind us. Now, moving on into our fourth question, if you had to pick one character from Skylanders to represent the franchise as a whole, who would it be and why?
If I had to choose one character, I guess I can choose Spyro since he's the reason that Skylanders came to existence, and he's also my favorite character. I mean, it started out from Spyro and eventually evolved into its own thing, and it just grew up from there. Is he still a part of the franchise in some way? And I'm just glad that he was able to be in some form a playable character role instead of being a limbo, you know?
That's a tricky question. I think it's got to be a Rupker, though, at the end of the day, because he's appeared in everything in some way, shape, or form. He's got the most toys out of any character. He appeared at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is a huge milestone achievement. And instead of Stealth Elf or Spyro, it was him. And so I think that he's just got this appeal that very few other characters can really get a grasp of, if you feel what I'm saying. So I think it's got to be a Rupker.
To me, it's definitely has to be like Stealth Elf because she's a strong, female character. There's not many in Skylanders, but she definitely deserves a lot of attention. She's such a creative character. Like her design's very cool, and also her personality, especially in Academy. Like I really liked how they do that. So Stealth Elf, definitely.
On a sentimental level, this guy here, and I was just going to make sure I got his name right, who's Stump Smash, I think that's correct. It's kind of like, if you're a content creator on Skylanders, how could you not know every Skylander name? But there's so many, So Stump Smash was one of the examples they used for Skylanders Spyro's Adventure when they were talking to press. It was an example, they showed the development of him and how he was kind of a Lord of the Rings kind of inspired route, sort of, you've got the Ents kind of living tree kind of stuff, but then it needed to be more cartoony to engage kids. And so kind of that combination, I think also then we just enjoyed his kind of the outlandish kind of whapping things in the game, and really just my kids connected to him, and so that meant that for us as a family he was a go-to character. And then he had different iterations and quite a few special editions. I remember the Flock version of Stump Smash, don't usually seen that, where it was actually kind of a fabricy kind of material on the character. But to represent it to other people, you probably would pick a different character, but for me and my family, Stump Smash is the one.
So although we've been limited to one game, I could never really accurately pinpoint of what an exact Skylander who would be a mix for all of the bunch. But if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Swarm or Flameslinger, because first for Flameslinger, he has the fastest movement of giants, and second, Swarm is the fastest movement in terms of giants is Swarm. So if I had one who would be the most important for the entire Skylander franchise, those would be my two picks from a speedrunning perspective.
Actually, I conducted a poll in the subreddit on the most popular Skylander, and the one that was voted was Pop Fizz, so I think I'd go that. He's an iconic fan favorite, and it's easy to see why. His personality and moveset is really good.
I'm going to go with Prison Break because he's been around since the first game. He's been represented quite a few times on cover art up until after Swap Force, where he didn't show up anymore. But yeah, I don't know, something about Prison Break. I see Prison Break and I'm like, yeah, that's Skylanders right there. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense, but it's just, to me, that's who is Skylanders.
This is a really tough question because there's so many characters and so many characters that I think that could fit this question very well. But I gotta give it to Chaos, just because, when you think of Skylanders, you think of Chaos. He's the most iconic character to a lot of people, and he just sort of encapsulates like the feeling of the games. It's, of course, the series is meant for children, so it's very childlike, but it's also, sinister and dark, and it's fun, and it's quirky, and it's weird, and it's awesome. So I think Chaos is, not just because he's the most recognizable, but just for all of those reasons would be the best character to represent the Skylanders franchise.
There's a part of me that wants to say Eon, because he's like one of the first characters that you see. He's the first voice that you hear in all the games, because he just helps establish and guide and everything. And he's like the wizard character, right? The wise wizard. So he's like Gandalf basically in Skylanders. Yeah, I don't know if I would pick Eon though. Honestly, okay, I think I might pick Flynn, because he's kind of a knucklehead, he's kind of a doofus, but he has good intentions at heart, and so he somehow always ends up getting the right thing done. He's really good at being good, even though he's bad at anything else.
So we got a pretty cool variety of responses there. Not only did we get Skylanders and a good variety of Skylanders too, but we also got a couple NPCs as well. So it just goes to show that one of Skylanders' strengths was always the amount of characters and having tons of different characters for you to interact with and to pick to choose to play as in the games. Now, continuing off of the characters, which character or level from the franchise do you think has the most inspirational design?
One of the levels that really jumps out to me, especially from the early era of the franchise, is the Darklight Crypt, which the last time I recorded with you guys, we actually discussed the Darklight Crypt. And one of the things that is so interesting about that level is that you can switch back and forth between the real world and the ghost world. And I think the level design there is just really great. And it feels a lot more like some of the later levels that you get in Skylanders Superchargers that all had unique themes and unique concepts and game mechanics. And that's one of the reasons that Darklight Crypt, I think, is such a special level, especially considering that it was a Spyro's Adventure level.
I think it's got to be Junkyard Isles from Skylanders Giants. I feel like that level just really has this great atmosphere, great original soundtrack in the background. It's a very nice beginner level that can still feel very, I guess, even hard at times for veterans. It feels like the Skylanders level. Everything you'd want.
I think I have to say the Oracle from Skylanders Giants. Because that level is all about freedom of choice. Just, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And that really is just, it's such a great concept that I really am glad with how they executed it.
Even a simple level like the first level in Trap Team with soda, who wants some soda? But I like that stage, and the one that just always comes back to me is in SWAT Force. I don't know if it's called Mother Mayhem, but the one when you actually had to get up physically off your couch and take your figure off the portal. Because I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what did they want me to do here? What? Really? They want me to get up and take the character off the portal? I thought that was very innovative, and I just really thought that was pretty cool.
I don't know why. I keep thinking about the Cloud Kingdom in Superchargers. The Cloud Kingdom. You know, it had like some story to Lightning Rod, and it had a lot of, I think, Lightning Rod's relatives in it. So I really liked how they drew some creativity for that. They kind of made a story with Lightning Rod in that level in Superchargers. There's a lot of creative levels in Skylanders, and definitely, of course, the soda level from Imaginators, and then the casino level in Imaginators. Like, that was amazing. Like, I think some of the levels in Imaginators, even in the recent game, like, were still really good. Yeah, they might have been definitely really shorter, I think, than most games, and definitely Imagineers, since it was last game, I think it got a lot of hate for multiple reasons, which is definitely valid, but I think Imagineers was still had some of the best levels in it, just like so rememberable and so likable by many, especially myself.
The Spellpunk library. I love just the one singular level where you hop into books and it turns into like a side-scrolling cell-shaded like event. And then you can do like the other stuff when it comes to the air and the land Skylanders. It's just a really cool level. And it's wild that it's, 5 games in, they're still coming up with this insanely creative level too. Like, it looks good, it's not too long, it's not too challenging. I think that's definitely one of the best looking ones for sure. I mean, they even threw back to it in Imaginators.
If I had to go by levels, I'd probably say Empire of Ice, specifically of the 3DS port, because they managed to blend the elements of like an icy level with the elements of like Arcus, like the Archean armory elements. They probably were doing it as like reusing assets from the main game, but the way those level types blend together, it just works in a way that you don't really see in any other ice levels. So I'd probably lean towards that in terms of level design. And for character design, I'm leaning towards Splat, surprisingly enough. Like, she is a supercharger and everything, so she comes along a bit late into the series. But I do think her artist vibe, her creative energy, is pretty inspirational.
I might be a bit biased, but Terrafin, obviously, I just find his design really cool. It grabbed me as a kid, this cool shark brawler thing. I've just loved him ever since. His Frostfest mouth on the Swickers is my favorites. I love the contrast between the snowy blizzard and the warm village.
I'm going to go with Hoodsicle. I think some of the Imaginators had some of the best designs, and the concept behind Hoodsicle, just everything works. Like he's this bringer of death. He has the sickle, he has the hood, and every detail on him is just perfect. Not to mention I love playing as Hoodsicle.
Not only were some of these really great answers, but a lot of these were a lot deeper than I expected when we initially designed this question. It's really got me thinking on it now. But continuing on past characters and their design, on to the next question. Question number 6. What do you think is the most interesting part of the Skylanders lore?
There's so many interesting parts of the Skylanders lore, but I think what's most interesting is just how much there is. Because, you can pick sort of any topic revolving Skylanders, whether it's, Portal Masters, the Core of Light, Mabu, the legendary Skylanders. Like, you can pick anything, and there's so much lore behind it, and I think that's just so cool, and there's so much to dive into if you really want to, because, there's not just the games, but there's also, the comics, there's, all this other different stuff that all ties in, and it's just the sheer amount of it, I think, is just so incredible that you get to just sort of dive in and become immersed in the world of Skylands.
Having us, the players, aka the Portal Masters, playing a role in the game, instead of just paying attention to the Skylanders or the characters in Skylands. Like, we have a role in this game, and it's up to us to actually use the Skylanders we have in order to, like, navigate through the levels and save the world. We play a role in that, and I kind of like that bit.
Lore has never been my strong suit. I was always more focused on the figures and what figures were coming out and when they were coming out and playing through the games. I never took too much time to look into the lore. But with that being said, I just kind of like the original concept of how the Skylanders came to Earth. Like how they were turned into toys and came to Earth. Like just that original concept. Without that, I mean, we don't have Skylanders. So I think that's the best part for me.
Okay, so it's 2. I think the Archeans are incredibly interesting because I think they do a good job of kind of like keeping them a little bit shrouded in mystery, but where you know just enough about them that like you're aware of them, what, like you're able to recognize Archeans when you see them in the game and everything, but you don't really know everything that went on behind all of that, We just, like, in Giants, we kind of figure out that, like, there was the big Archean robot king, and then he got cast down, and the fist of Arceus was, like, got broken off of him and everything, and then all the Archeans shut down, and that's kind of all we know about the Archeans. We don't really know, like, how they were built or how they got there or anything, so they're kind of, like, the mystery, I guess, of the Skylanders universe, so I think they're really cool. And then I also really enjoy the fact that, like, they don't go into it as much in the other games. Well, in Trap Team they do kind of reference it a little bit, but that like the Skylanders universe and our universe are kind of pulled together by the portals, So like the portals actually let each universe affect the other. So like I think in the end of Giants, you see, or actually maybe it's at the end of the first game when they send Chaos away, and even when Chaos banishes the Skylanders, they all end up on Earth, right? And then in Trap Team at the end when you're doing that boss fight with Chaos, and I still love this part, I think this is so cool, when he like picks up, it's like supposed to be like he grabbed all the furniture and appliances and stuff out of your room and kitchen, whatever was around you, and pulled it into the game with him there to then throw at your character and everything. Like, I think that stuff is so cool that they kind of let the lines between reality and the game get blurred a little bit, which I don't know if that's necessarily a lore thing in Skylanders, but I really appreciate that.
To make a new IP like back in the day, back in 2011, to make a new IP like Skylanders, it's pretty cool that they came up with so many unique characters, but at the same time, it still felt like Skylanders. I don't know how to really explain it, but sometimes when you see Pokemon, is that a Pokemon? That looks so weird. That looks like a Digimon. But Skylanders, the artists always had the same kind of feel. I said, you could say, okay, yeah, that is a Skylander. And I always thought the artists in general, the creators, the people with the imaginations did a really good job.
Honestly, the most interesting part to me is, and To be honest, I haven't really looked into the Skylanders backstories sort of after Swap Force, but at least in the SSA era, there was a lot of, and I think in the community at the time, you can connect some dots that weren't confirmed and to be canon by any means. But take Igniter, for example. In his backstory, he talks about how a witch gave him the armor that cursed him to be a fire spirit, and since then he's kind of always had a dislike for witches. And in my mind, I instantly connected that to Hex, and I was thinking, well, wouldn't it be interesting if like the Skylanders are like that was Hex, and that he has to be on, say, a team working with this character who wronged him. And there was another one. It was Wrecking Ball, for example, I think. Yeah, it was Wrecking Ball, where someone was going to throw him into a stew, and I think it was said it was like a wizard or a sorcerer or something. And in my head, it was like, well, what if that was Double Trouble kind of thing? And I just like this idea that there was enough free reign that you can connect these stories and make them in your head, and you weren't technically wrong. I mean, unless the creators were to come out and say like, oh, that's not canon, it was just some other guy who did this to these characters, and it's like, okay. But there was just a lot of free reign you could have in your head to develop what the background would be. And just another note about the backstory, some of them felt a little dark at the times, like even with Whamshell, that like his whole kingdom was lost, and they never did say that he was able to find his people again. And so it's like he's just this king who's looking for his kingdom and he doesn't know where they are. It's a little tragic. There's some tragic backstories there, and it's, I don't know, I find that compelling for especially like what's targeted as a kid's platformer.
So there's two things that you could go here, and the first one could be the darkness, because I think that the story behind the darkness and the whole core of light thing is really fun and really cool, and it's a big part of why Skylanders Superchargers has my favorite story. But I think that the more interesting part of the lore is actually Malefor, and the lore that surrounds him. And it was only really expounded on in the animated series, Skylanders Academy. But I think that a lot of the hidden lore that you can read in a lot of the characters' backstories and see in the comics, I think it was such an interesting character, and I wish that they had expanded more on it in the actual mainline games.
The most interesting part, most of it probably came from like maybe Skylanders Academy for me, though that's mainly because it was just like a more consistent like build up over like 2 or whatever many seasons they had for it, as opposed to like like Spyro's Adventure. I can't even remember the stories of the games, but just like they were also like just fragmented and just sort of like separated to their own games, just very reserved. I feel like Skylanders Academy was definitely very good for the Skylanders lore, because it established the characters, and then it built up, and it didn't like do like entire like different stories each season. It just kept the same story and continued building up across the entire series. But I'd say the most interesting part about that in terms of lore would have been just seeing like all the Skylanders just like sort of communicate, I guess, because you don't really see that in the games. You really just see them like as this heroic figure, like there's only one of them or maybe 2 of them at one time on the screen, and all they're doing is fighting. They're not really talking, they're not really like getting to know each other. There's no real like they just seem like, I don't know, like figureheads, maybe like almost like mechanical, just like soulless almost, I would say. But in the TV series, I feel like that really like nailed like that these like characters aren't just like these soulless, heroic, like robotic sort of things, but rather they're like, they're kind of, they have souls. They're just kind of like they're characters too, like they're just like Flynn, or they're just like Hugo, they have characteristics to them. They know each other. They have this academy that they meet at, and they're all sort of fighting this common goal against this one guy, So I felt like that was probably the best part of the lore for me.
The greatest thing about the Skylanders lore is probably the villain, Chaos. I mean, it's very smart of Activision and Toys for Bob and everybody to kind of use him as the villain for every game. Maybe it was kind of repetitive. I know in the mobile games, he wasn't the villain all the time, or the 3DS games. But when it comes to like storytelling and stuff, it's like your heroes are only as strong as your villain, and having such a charismatic and funny kind of villain has, to me, kind of is just every game came out, I was like, what craziness is Chaos going to get into? And we got a lot of his backstory with his mom and his minions and everything. I still feel like I need to know more about Skylander's dad. I guess we got some of that with the cartoon and the Netflix show a little bit, here and there.
It's really interesting how the Skylanders lore has kind of changed and evolved over time. We have the alternate universe with Skylanders Academy. We have the varying degree of accuracy with the lore throughout the games. We have the comic book series. There's just tons of different stuff that happened with the Skylanders plot over the years. So some really interesting responses there. Now, of course, as much as we love this franchise, one of the big things about being fans is, of course, wanting to see that franchise improve. So if you could change one thing about the series, what would it be?
Oh, mine's controversial. It's going to be bad, just saying. I think Giants should have been a DLC for Spyro's Adventure and not a standalone game because it's too linear. It seems just like Spyro's Adventure with a couple new things added. There's nothing crazy new about it. And it felt like it should have been just a little DLC at the end of Spyro's Adventure. Like, they could have went bigger and better, but it looks the same, it feels the same, they just added giants. And that was really it.
I think that the thing that I really enjoy about the series is the character variety, so I would not change anything about the rosters. But, actually, no, I've got it. I would remove every turret section in the games. Turret sections are not fun.
If I were to change one thing about the series, I would probably say pricing. I think $10 for figure, or, well, at least for the early games, it was $10. In later games, it became like $15. I would say $10 is, I would honestly say, a little bit ludicrous in like pricing when you're getting like 32 figures each year. It's just very pricey for one game. So if I were to just change anything about Skylanders, honestly, probably just pricing. Because if that barrier was gone, I feel like the games would be so much better, so much more easily accessible, and I don't know, it may honestly even be more, like, it would possibly still be, like, super successful to this day, just because of more accessibility and all that.
If I was able to change anything about the series, I'd probably just make the games more linear, as in, make the games like Spyro's Adventure and Giants, since they're pretty similar, kind of like follow off of that, because that would seem like a more simplistic view of it, but I think that would just be my view of what the Skylander game should be, just to keep it similar in like physics and just a little bit of new Skylanders like Giants were added because the Series 2s and the Giants coming in. So that's why I would just make it first because the variations got little good views in it after Swap Force Trap Team.
I know the figures are mostly the biggest part, but honestly, I just kind of make them not have to be necessary, just because it's kind of like a problem. You sometimes want to play as one character, but you just can't get it. They haven't come to where you live, stuff. And yeah, maybe just that, maybe just not fully needed the figures, but there being an option and stuff. Mostly that. I don't think they're necessary. Like, I remember playing Starlink, and that had the option to buy the figures online, and that was a good idea. I don't know why Skylanders didn't really do that.
Some of the characters, like, I didn't like all the Series 2 and Wii poses, if that's a thing, but I would definitely, I wish that they would make so many Series 2s and 3s, and the Wow Pows, like, weren't really ever interesting to me, like, the Wow Pows, the whole Wow Pow kind of thing, and the light core explosion thing on the screen, that wasn't very interesting to me as a kid.
If I was going to change one single thing about the series, it would be fixing the problem that you kind of run out of things to do in the game once you've beaten the game and bought all the Skylanders. Because one thing I always struggled with was, so the original game had, 32 Skylanders. And when you first got the game, only a fraction of them, maybe 16 at most, half of the game's figures were actually out. And you'd play the game for a long time, and you'd go through all the content, you'd level up your Skylanders, and then later on, you would get those other 16 Skylanders, and you'd kind of have to force yourself to replay aspects of the game just to level them up and just to experience them. And I wish that there had been more things in the game to compel you to buy the new Skylanders and introduce new content, the adventure packs. They gave you more content to play around with when you got a new Skylander. And I think that a lot of the figures would have benefited if there had been an incentive to buy them and they had added more content to the game and given you a reason to go back and play with them, I guess.
I guess I would bring back characters that didn't return. Like, Mesmeralda was such a cool villain, and could have been implemented more and could have had more epic songs. Oh, you know what? Dreamcatcher. I wish Dreamcatcher was playable. I love Dreamcatcher so much. I was gutted when Dreamcatcher didn't return in Imaginators. Would have been so on board with that.
I think the vehicles are like the stupidest thing because it's like, oh yeah, you have all these like cool Skylanders that can teleport and fly and all this stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, but they need a car, which a car still doesn't make sense to me in Skylands because it's a bunch of floating islands. Like, I can understand the planes, but a car? Eh.
We've heard some really, really great and well thought out ideas from this question. It just goes to show that as much as you may love a series, it's not beyond a little bit of criticism. And the fans are always open with new ideas that could lead to something great. Now, expanding upon that thought comes our 8th question. If the developers were to turn one side mode or minigame from the franchise into a spin-off game, which side mode or minigame would you most like to see that happen with?
Is it too much of a cop-out to say the racing? Because the racing is really good. Like, Superchargers racing by itself, I don't know, because like I've only done it like in Imaginators, which I'm assuming it's very similar to how it is in Superchargers. I would hope that they just grabbed the same game engine and just was like, here you go. But I don't know how like the actual just like the transition from like normal gameplay to vehicle gameplay goes in Superchargers, but the actual just racing just by itself is really, really good. It's really fun. And the items are cool. I love that they used the magic items as like the power-ups in the racing mode. I thought that was awesome.
I think it'd have to be the battle arenas. Like, I just want a way to fight other people. And any game that they create nowadays, I think we could probably guarantee, although, I mean, they had a really tough time moving online, but I would hope that any game they put out nowadays would have an online mode, and we'd be able to play other people. But yeah, I definitely want to see Skylanders battling other Skylanders and being able to play against other community members.
Oh, let's see. That's probably an easy one. I love Skystones, which I feel like got a mini subplot game with like a cereal box and some cardboard cutouts that I've played with a couple of times. But I would love to see like a Skystones, sort of like a Hearthstone or Magic, the Gathering, kind of a fully fleshed out Skystones kind of game or something like that would be a fun kind of branch of. I don't know if it could be like a full-fledged game, but if I could just click on a button on my friends list and play anybody I want on any kind of computer or tablet, some Skystones, that would be fun.
Well, the one that sticks in my head are the lock puzzles, which I hadn't really thought of in great detail until recently. I was playing New Super Lucky's Tale, which is quite Skylanders-y in its presentation and its audience. And it has a kind of an equivalent of a lock puzzle where you're moving statues around. But it's not executed nearly so well, I don't think. And it's quite laborious. And it just made me want to go and play Skylanders again. So those lock puzzles I really like. And I think if I was to pick something as kind of a side game, that would be quite good. Although, thinking about it, I'm not sure how well. I think a lot of elements in Skylanders, they kind of work when they contribute to the whole, but on their own, I think there may be that's kind of peculiar about it. On their own, the individual parts aren't that strong, but they fit together so well that as a whole experience, it really works. So lock puzzles is probably what I'd call out as something I'd like to see more of. But I think it would need something else to make it sort of stand in its own right. And I think whatever it was, it would need to be very clear, have a very clear link to the figures. And so really anything that would capitalise upon those big bags and sort of tubs of figures that so many families have got would be really exciting. So if you could do that with the lock puzzle sort of experience, obviously these days it would need to have a social element too. Maybe you could do like Tetris 99 and was it Pac-Man, whatever it is. You could do like a lock puzzle version of that, but then you can bring in Skylanders to hamper other players. There you go. There's a game idea for free.
I'd love to see a Skylanders fighting game, or like a Super Smash Bros. Style fighting game, or just a PvP.
For some reason, I didn't like the lightning bolt little mini game, but I really like the claw thing from Imaginators, where you grab, I don't know, it was like the claw thing from Imaginators. That's the only one I really remember, I feel like. I don't know if there's anything else, but yeah, I like that one.
Whenever I think of mini games in Skylanders, I think of the actual mini games. So I'm going to say the Sprocket mini game from the Golden Arcade. Like, it's fun, and you can just sit around and not get bored. Golden Arcade might not be the best level, but the mini games are fun.
Well, one side mode that comes to mind is actually the Chaos Doom challenge. I loved, seeing escalating waves of difficulties as he was just bombarded by enemies, and you could set up elemental defense towers, so there was a strategy to it. Do you defend for towers, or do you defend for Mystery Box of Doom? And it was high rewarding too. You could get just huge amounts of gold and experience for meshing your way through these waves. And it really reminded me of a game that I played a few years back that I thoroughly enjoyed called Transformers War for Cybertron, that had a mode called Escalation, where you went against waves of enemies that constantly got harder and harder as you went along. You could play with other players in a cooperative online mode. That's what made Escalation as special as it was back in War for Cybertron. And so the intensity, the survivalness of it all, and being able to do it alongside other people is what made that mode in War for Cybertron so great. So taking that in Skylanders and, really expanding upon the Chaos Doom challenge is ultimately what could make it such a fun solo game in my personal opinion, because you not only could have elemental power defenses, but you could have a mode where you have infinite waves to deal with, and you have to see how long you can survive with a single Skylander maybe, or you could get up to 3 friends to come in and battle these waves of enemies together to see how long you can all survive, and then rather than just elemental tower defenses, you could create scores from the amount of enemies you defeat and use that score on weapons, like in i5's Villain Quest. Yes, I have thought about this a lot already, so that's why I'm glad it came up in this interview, you could go as far to say, since in that mode you can get flying saucers with lasers, you can get flamethrowers to really aid you in battle. How cool would it be to have those elemental towers, just hordes of enemies that are infinite in scope and just keep coming, and your challenge is to get through as many of them as possible whilst you're in a party call on PlayStation with your mates, communicating, coming up with strategies, maybe even setting traps. Man, that would be cool. They could make it so intricate and so much fun. Chaos Doom Challenge has such a strong potential to be its own game in and of itself, and that's what I would like to see happen most of all.
Some of these responses were really creative. Having something like Egg Rescue or the Lock Puzzles as the spin-off game, or as like a mini game that you could have on like a mobile app. I never would have thought of that, but honestly, that would be like so cool, having like little lock puzzles that you'd be able to do in the morning. Definitely some great ideas. Now, instead of a spin-off game, what would you like to see for a new game returning to the Skylanders universe?
Now, here's the thing. Despite me going on record and saying what my perfect Skylanders game would be, I know for a fact that it would never happen. There's no such thing as a dream Skylanders 7, because if there was to be a Skylanders 7, and I sincerely hope there is, it's going to disappoint a lot of people because it's not going to be exactly what they want, since Activision can't please everyone. So they're just going to go off, they're going to make their own thing, and whether or not many people within the fan base get what they want will yet to have been seen. And what I would personally like to see is some sort of camera-based tech, so that then when you place a Skylander onto the portal, that same appearance on the figurine appears in the game. It would be so cool to paint your Skylanders and see those custom designs come to life within the game. Or, maybe you could have these blind bags with hats, and when you put a hat on top of a Skylander, it appears like so in-game, and you get those buffs on top of it all. That would be so damn awesome to just see, like, Lost Island alter egos created as customs from content creators like the Skylander dude, and then when you place them on the portal and the camera picks it up too, you can then have a direct correlation of that into the game. It would be so awesome. Whether technology is that advanced yet or not, I have no clue. But all I know is that for a Dream Skylander 7, if I had to pick it out, it would be some sort of camera technology so that then you could have your customs actually appear in-game, so you can see a true passion for custom Skylander creators, because honestly there's so much art and talent put into those customs that it's just so disappointing to see that when you put them onto the portal they just appear as regular Skylanders. It's not got that same sense of reward to it, you could say. And this way Activision could really promote creativity, as you have to not only design these characters but then go out of your way to paint them, to build them up using, parts from other Skylanders or clay, anything of that manner. And it would be so cool to see that. I cannot emphasize enough how much I would want to see that. But again, having this dream in my head, a Skylander 7, I'm not sure if I even want it, because it would just let me down with the fact that that would most likely not be the case. A dream Skylander 7, if a Skylander 7 was to happen, it wouldn't necessarily live up to that dream. But I would absolutely want to see it happen. I doubt it would happen, but hey, I would love to be proven wrong.
A different main villain, like legit. Because having Chaos be the main villain for every game, like main villain at the end of the day, does get a little bit annoying. Like, I love Chaos. He's just a funny little guy, but every once in a while you get one of those show-stealing villains where it's like, man, I wish you were the real final boss. I think only time they had a different character be the main final boss was Superchargers, and that was really cool, and I think they should do that again.
Well, I'm not honestly. I know a lot of people are keen with the idea of a Skylanders Spyro's Adventure remake. I actually think the game is aging fairly well. It doesn't exactly need one. I want something. I would definitely say an open world style game, like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, the Elder Scrolls series, and I think that Skylanders really benefit from something like that if it was made very well. The reason being, I think Skylanders has this really grand, open universe that everyone and their mom would love to explore. So it's something that has a lot of potential.
I'd like to see a new game in general. Like, if we were to speak a new gimmick, maybe something like expanding on some previous gimmick, like Giants or something like that, or just maybe making the game a little more open, bigger, kind of expand the series a lot more, make it a lot more stuff to explore and stuff.
Not to offend anyone, this might be a bit of a bold or controversial claim, but I would say that the demographic by Activision with Skylanders games, like the demographic they're mainly shooting at, are younger, like children, at least based on the direction of the series in the later games. They just seem to really make it more just all the characters became more cartoonish, and the story just felt a lot less serious, and it was a lot less gritty, and it was just, it seemed like the series had sort of turned towards that direction. And if they were to make a new game, I would, in my opinion, I would much prefer if they abandoned that entirely and just made it more similar to the first two games, where it's just more gritty, maybe advance the story a little bit more. And once again, I mean, I'm talking from the perspective a borderline young adult, I guess. I don't know whether or not an 8-year-old would be fond of this stuff, but I know that just from a personal thing, I would prefer the game to just be a lot more mature. Not crazy mature, not Call of Duty levels, but I'd say maybe more along the lines of Zelda, just not to treat the audience as much of 8-year-olds, and more so anyone that just has an interest in these Toys to Life figures and the concept of it all.
A lot of levels with unique and interesting themes and gimmicks would be really cool. Like Superchargers, for example. I was thinking 2-element scanners, but yeah, Swap Force kind of does that already, so I'm not sure.
I've said this before in other our podcast with Crash the Skylanders. I'd like to see some kind of Skylander babies. I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, but maybe it's been years now. Some of the Skylanders have gotten together. So there's certain Skylanders out there that are pretty powerful because they can harness two powers, say fire and water, so it would be a steampunk maybe character for that, or maybe a magic character gets together with a life character and they create some kind of super baby. And that would be a way of maybe limiting figures. Maybe there would only be, instead of 10 different elements, there would only be 5. And I think that would be kind of cool. Some kind of some kind of character that could harness more than one element.
So what I would want to see is a 7th installment that takes place after Skylanders Imaginators, and it just sort of picks up where the story left off with, Brain sort of giving that little teaser at the end where he's telling a story, and it sort of picks up from there. And whatever happens, whether it goes on into a multiple games story arc or whatever, but I would love to see just basically a 7th installment that's pretty story focused and takes place after Imagineers. That's what I would want to see the most.
So I've wanted this for a very long time, but I want to be able to just scan in like hundreds of Skylanders at once and then have like a whole battle with them, like the Warriors series. Those games have like hundreds of enemies you fight. So I want that, but like 2 of time. So like you control like tons of different Skylanders, but then the enemies have like tons of enemies, and it's just an all-out war. And I kind of thought of that because of the first Skylanders trailer, where you have all the Skylanders on this huge battle just fighting all these enemies, and they're trying to defend the Core of Light, and they fail, but it's still really cool, and I really want something like that. And it kind of like rewards those people that went out and actually got like 100 Skylanders, and they have all these like all-out wars. I don't know exactly how it would work, but I just think that would be awesome.
From a nostalgia point of view, I would love nothing more than more of what we've already gotten. The same, dungeon crawler, Skylanders, plastic figures, give me all of them. I would love to see them go back to basics and do that. I don't think that's something that's going to happen. So at this point, I'm honestly happy with any new game they would give us. I think the most likely is an all-digital Skylanders game. I'm okay with that. I would still want something physical to collect, if at all possible. If they don't do figures, give me trading cards with NFC chips in them. Anything. Like, I will give you my money, Activision. Just give me the product.
Well, we've gotten a lot of really, really amazing answers today. A lot of answers that truly showcase how much this community loves the Skylanders franchise. Now, on that note, that brings us to our final question. Question number 10. As the first 10 years draws to a close, if you could say one thing to the creators at Toys for Bob, Vicarious Visions, and Beanox regarding how you feel about this franchise, what would it be?
I'd probably say to, just sort of like go back to the traditional stuff. Go back to battle mode, go back to more gritty and more mature style, and make it so that figures don't cost as much. That's probably all I would say, honestly. It's just the little flaws I have about the franchise. Overall, it's a very good franchise, just some minor things.
Well, happy 10-year anniversary. You guys gave us some great games to play, some awesome toys and figures to collect, put on our shelves. A lot of games don't make it past the first game or never have a sequel, so we got lucky to have a whole bunch. We got a bunch of comics and TV shows and collectible things and plushies that it's definitely been part of my, I wouldn't say childhood, but my adult childhood, sort of a resurgence of just kind of like enjoying, collecting toys and playing like video games and communicating with the community. That's made it been great.
Well, first of all, I would say, how dare Activision turn Toys for Bob into a Call of Duty developer? Secondly, thank them, because, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be doing this today regardless. And no matter what, in the end, I'm going to support everything that they do and every decision they make, even though I'm not a big fan of them, of what they do now. I still support them, and I love the fact that they're still working on stuff, and who knows, one day they might be able to drift back into the stuff that we actually want, instead of Call of Duty,
To Toys for Bob and Vicarious Visions, I thank them for the efforts and creativity they've showed through the years of Skylanders. They worked very hard in creating the world of Skylands, and it just make me feel nostalgic seeing that all these worlds, all these characters they created, all this for a bigger universe. Like, they have the potential to expand that, and I like to thank them for their efforts. And well, it was a fun good years, and if they ever go back to the handle of creating more games, then I'm more than welcome to play more.
Yeah, I think it's easy to feel like, oh, it's just a video game. It's just entertainment. You know, it kept kids busy for a while. But actually, I think these things become part of the sort of fabric of family life. And so they become woven into our actual lives. And so I know that it's a franchise that's created to make profit, but I also know that they could have probably made just as much money without hitting quality and diversity and all those sorts of things. So I think that the extra time, love and attention that they lavished on the characters, on the toys and on the game mean that all those memories are all the richer. And so it sort of locks them into the kind of the shared memory of family life, which makes me think that because of that, I expect it to have, you know, a stronger future than it may seem it has now. So I don't feel like the final dice has been rolled by any means on the Skylanders figures. And I think that comes from how attentive, how professional, and how creative and imaginative people at the studio were. Not only people like Yue that we know about, and Paul Ritchie, and that the sort of, you know, the people that are in front of the camera, but that kind of wider team, some of whom, you know, you meet on the studio tours, you get to know on Twitter, but that the sort of that the wider contributors all seem to buy into that ethos that we could just dial this in and make some money, but actually we're going to really make something quite special. So I'd just like to say thank you really for that, and you know, for the memories that they made, for families, and then also for me as a creator. They created this whole space to come into and, you know, enjoy and engage and find a community.
Well, I could say thank you, but thank you doesn't begin to scratch the surface. These developers have created games that have inspired me for years. They have impacted my life and created a passion for gaming that before these games came out I didn't know was there. They awoken an inner creativity and passion inside of me, and I don't think a thank you really, you know, begins to scratch the surface. I just want them to know that the games that they've created out of the passion has truly went on to change and to inspire the lives of many. The fact that, you know, you can build from your passion, from your creativity, something that just leaves this sense of warmth and happiness with anything it touches. I hope that you have pride over that. I sincerely do. I hope that you guys are proud of these games, because these games are something to be proud of. You guys poured your hearts and souls into these games, and because of that you were able to give us so much from it, and I'm so glad you was able to give us so much from it. I would love to be able to give something back to them. Unfortunately, I don't think that's as easy as it is, but you know, those are the very things I would want to say to the creators of these just legendary games, just for knowledge and the fact that they have created something bigger than themselves. They have created a community. They have inspired passionate artists and creators for years to come. These games will hopefully stand the test of time, and people will be looking and studying these games years down the line. So the fact that they have created something timeless and created a legacy through it is something powerful, and it's something that, again, I hope they have such pride over, because they deserve to feel honored to have made such impactful and incredible games. Like, again, incredible doesn't begin to scratch the surface of how much I love these games, and I'm so glad they exist. Without such passionate people behind these games, I honestly don't think the world would be as good as it is. Skylanders has made the world, to me, a better place. For saying is that you can't change the world for everyone, but you can change the world for one person. And that's what these games have done for me. These games have made this world a better place, and they have for hundreds of other people just like me who share this passion, who share this community with me. When I was saying earlier about my love for this community, well, it's all brought about thanks to the passion put behind these games. It just blows my mind that a group of remarkable people can all come together and just pour their hearts out into a game. And sure, if they reap the rewards, they get to see a community that, you know, sure, it's definitely going to be the initial reward of praise for games get, I suppose it goes far to say. But for several years later, to see people still have that same passion for it, That's gotta mean something, and I'm hoping that Toys of God, Vicarious Visions, and Beanox can see that.
I would just say I love you guys. Thanks for all the hard work and dedication over the years, and just bring her back, man. Bring her back.
Please make a new Skylanders game or a Skylanders remake for all of us adults that have grown up with these games and are still children inside. Please. That's probably all I'd ask.
I would just honestly want to thank them. I would want to say, everyone involved. Of course, you got all the big people, Paul Ritchie, Lou Studdard, Iway, all those amazing, amazing people, but also just all the people in between that don't get as much credit. I just want to say thank you for creating and bringing this world to life for all of us to enjoy. And, of course, I would love to say thank you because it means a lot to me, just this whole franchise. And it's incredible what you guys have done. And whether or not you guys are going to make anything else in the future, I just want to say thank you for giving us what we've gotten because it truly is incredible.
I think the biggest thing I would say is thank you for creating such an iconic and a memorable game and an experience. Because at the end of the day, Skylanders, it wasn't just a game, but there was an entire experience surrounding Skylanders. Going to the store, looking for your favorite, trying to find the new Skylanders. For a lot of kids that played this when they were younger, birthdays and Christmases were very exciting because you were usually going to get a new Skylander or something like that. The experience that they created for this game is honestly amazing. And I think that the world that they created too is just amazing. I think it's also amazing how they created a feeling that made you want to come back to the Skylanders game year after year. Every time there was a new one, they managed to make something that topped the last one, at least in most instances they did. And it was always so much fun to get to try out the new content that came with each game. And because all the games are still so varied and have so many different things, it's still a pleasure to go back and replay the older games.
I would probably just be really happy and tell them how much I love the game. That was just kind of a huge part of my childhood, just always loving the characters, the look, their signs, just constantly checking the website when new games were coming and just being excited and asking it for Christmas, but really never getting it. And it was one of the biggest part of my childhood, and I'm so thankful for that. I just be kind of saying all that to the developer, just being thankful for what they did.
Just one thing, I'd have to say, thanks for so much really good content. So much lore, so many fun and interesting characters. Thanks for all of that. I really love it.
First thing I'd have to say is thank you. You've created a wonderful, wonderful franchise. I've spent years of my life in this community, playing these games, collecting the figures, and just interacting with the franchise as a whole. And it has been some of the best years of my life. And as much as I am going to do everything I can to extend the lifetime of this franchise and this community, we need your help ultimately. So please come back. Please don't give up on Skylanders. We're here waiting.
It would be that this franchise has literally changed my life. I would not be the person that I am had it not been for this franchise. So I truly appreciate all the work, all the time that went into these games because it made me, me.
Thanks for making really great games that have been a blast to play throughout all these years, and here's to 10 more.
I love the creativity of the characters a lot, and I loved how much effort that they put into creating these characters, but also thinking of every single little idea that was so memorable. The stage building, the world building, just how much effort it took to literally put maybe all of the characters from the last game into the next game. Must have taken a lot of time, Yeah, thank you for making such a great franchise that a lot of people grew up with, and I think a lot of people are going to remember for decades from now, I think, yeah, definitely it's going to be these characters, like Spyro, Stealtho, Eruptor, and Jetpack, Papa's, I didn't mention Papa's already, have been so recognizable across the board. If someone just randomly sees one of those Skylanders, on a backpack or on anything. It's like, wow, I remember that character, and everyone's going to remember that character for being their favorite Skylander. It's so special.
Thank you for everything you've done to make Skylanders what it is. The heart and soul that you've all poured in, the many, many, many hours, the crazy ideas that you've all combined really have just made something quite special. It was the first Toys to Life game, and I don't think there's another Toys to Life game that has surpassed what Skylanders did. It's just such a wonderful experience, and it made me a happier person, and it changed my life in many ways, as I'm sure it did so many others. Everyone who worked on this, who works on any game, has such a big impact on so many, and yeah, I personally am very, very appreciative, so thank you.
Thank you for creating this beautiful game. Serious.
I would probably say thank you for just making such a cool game and putting so much effort into it. Like, whenever I watch interviews and stuff like that from the people that worked on this game, all I see is, like, love and care and all these people, like, putting their heart into this game, and it's very much appreciated. I've seen many other game companies that just don't have that love and care, and all they're doing is, you know, trying to nickel and dime everyone. But with Skylanders, I could tell that, like, they really cared about this franchise and wanted it to succeed, and it did succeed, so I'm just happy for them.
I would just like to say that they had a really great idea of the illusion of Toys to Life, because I think that was a big selling point. That's what kind of got me into Skylanders. That's how I played it. So, because the Portal and the Toys for Life genre just made the game unique in its own way and interesting and apart from the rest.
Honestly, you guys did a great job with what you had, even missteps and stuff, but that's Po Buddy's perfect. And honestly, you created a great franchise. And as much as I would love to see you guys bring it back again, I think you left a really good legacy of a game that left its impact on people. So yeah, pat yourselves on the back for that one.
Thank you so much, Toys for Bob, Vicarious Visions, and Beanox, for creating this franchise that is so near and dear to my heart. It has definitely been something that has a lot of great memories surrounding it, and is something that has caused new friendships to form, and is something that has inspired me to do design work and do content creation. And it's just something that I see inspiration in constantly, and that's just because of the meticulous design and the amazing world building and just everything that is part of these games that really inspires me, and is a franchise that I can just dive into and play if I'm feeling sad or if I want to escape from the world. It's something that I think is a unique franchise and is something that can speak to everyone in so many different ways. And so just thank you so much for creating an amazing world that I got to, as a Portal Master, step into and be a part of. Thank you so much for 10 years of memories and 10 years of fun. I do not know where I would be in my nerdiness if it wasn't for Skylanders.
To the developers at Toys for Bob, Vicarious Visions, and Beanox, I would just like to offer a heartfelt thank you for all the work you put into designing and bringing to life this franchise that not only do we all cherish, but has also allowed us 10 years of unique experiences and irreplaceable memories, as well as fostering new friendships and strengthening existing bonds. Here's to 10 truly magnificent years.
I want to just give a thank you to all the creators for joining in with us for this episode. It really meant a lot for you all to take time out of your busy schedules to be able to join in for this extra special episode of Skylanders Portalcasters. But we're not quite done yet. The content creators have had their say, but now it's time for the developers to talk about their experience working on the franchise, and to express their messages for the fans. Stay tuned, because this 10th anniversary celebration is just getting started.
This segment might be over, but don't touch that dial, baby. Stay tuned for another segment of the Skylanders 10th anniversary celebration. Until then, this is Kill Bill, signing off.
You're actually the first person outside of the two of us to say that.
Are you serious?
Dead
It's the best part
serious.
of the game, besides for the game itself.
Yeah, you're the first person to say. I don't even remember. One person wanted Egg Rescue.
Ew, that game sucks. Who would want that? That was the
So,
only thing I did like about Imaginators.